you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
Like, if you're counterculture, the question is why?
How are you a feminist if you're constantly putting women down?
No, Grandma, no.
She cried when I got a pixie cut.
I'm very social masculine. I always wanted to be where the boys are. Women just generally, they'll talk around the issue and then they'll get to the issue. And like, they're very emotionally carrying in conversations, whereas men are very direct, like all the time.
I do believe that we're equals and we should be treated as equals.
Actually, both of these things are beautiful.
Welcome to Valley VibeZ, your show about culture, arts, and happenings in the Imperial Valley from a youth perspective. I'm Dr. Tom Tackey, the creator and executive producer of Valley VibeZ. Today is a very special show that our Valley VibeZ host, Athena Marino, produced just for you. She brings in a special guest to discuss how the feminist viewpoint is often misunderstood and how it can help our students to extend their knowledge about feminism.
Welcome to Valley VibeZ. I'm Athena Marino, your host, and I'm here with Kyla Turner, or as some of you might know her, Not So Erudite. I first found Kyla from watching a YouTube video about 5 feminists and 5 anti-feminists hash it out on the Dr. Daft show. Feminism is such a sensitive topic, along with many others, and seeing her being on a show where she's debating her own beliefs and values while staying calm and true to herself is extremely inspiring. The way Kyla Turner expresses what feminism is shows understanding and not just putting one gender over the other, but how they should be treated with equal amount of respect. Feminism doesn't just have one straight answer, and today, we're here to discuss that.
All right, howdy.
All right, then. Probably start with the introduction. So, my name is Athena.
I'm Arebella.
Yeah. If we could have you introduce yourself too.
Yeah, I go by Not So Erudite online. You can also just call me Kyla Turner. I am like a professional debater and content creator, and I also run a media company on the side where I do consultation, mostly for the Democrats in helping old unks understand alt media and explaining to them like how media works.
Yeah. So we want to talk about what is feminism to put this on the radio, so people can get more educated on like what exactly it is, because I feel that a lot of people have like a certain thinking of what it is, like you put women above men and you think that they're like better than them.
Their set idea of how feminism works.
Yeah.
Yeah. They think it's just misandry. They think it's just hating men.
Yeah, or you want to be like Wonder Woman and live like on an island of just like females, you know?
Yeah.
So I watched your video where you're reacting to when you went against like 5 anti-feminists and 5 feminists. So I was watching that and I was like, I genuinely started getting like pissed off.
Fair, yeah.
Like,
debates like that will have that effect. It wasn't the funnest debate.
Yeah. So I'm like pretty passionate about this. So just like seeing that and like seeing their point of view, it's just like, it makes me question things.
Very fair. Very fair. Yeah, I mean, it's actually interesting. I got into feminist stuff because I actually started in media in male advocacy. So I was going a lot into the red pill spaces and talking about like a bridge, like basically being like, here's what is valid actually within the red pill, which is like it acknowledges that not a lot of people care about men and how they feel, right? It gives them some good structures like exercising and stuff like that. It's always good to exercise. It's always good to dress better. And then I also point out the glaring gaps of the red pill. So I actually started mostly with like a 99% male audience talking about male issues. I talked a lot about incels from kind of a psych perspective, about the rates of autism and the rates of like extreme mental illness within like the incel community, and just some of the research that's come out about these things. And it's actually through this work that I think I started speaking more openly as well about like my feminism. Like I think my feminism very much informed my male advocacy. And then I think unfortunately, because feminism still has work to do. If you're a female debater who's in politics, you just get lumped into debating feminism forever. They're like, I know what she could debate, feminism. And it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, my specialties, like I'm by no means like a feminist expert at all. Like I care about feminism because I believe in the fundamental vision of it, which is the promotion of femininity and the empowerment of women. And I think that that's a good thing, right? But I'm actually more passionate about like psychology and philosophy and like foreign policy and political philosophy. So it's very funny that I always get put into these. It's not funny at all. And it's ironic that I'm always having to debate and talk about feminism, which I'm always happy to do. And I always make the joke that I'm like feminist strongest soldier. But it's interesting because I actually come from a background of mostly talking about men's issues and psychology. So it very much speaks to the role, even within like a kind of a left sphere, that women still get placed into, of being like, oh, we are women, so you probably want to talk about feminism, which I know actually some female debaters that like refuse to talk about feminism because it like annoys them that that's what they're just like assumed to do so much. Yeah.
Yeah. I think out of the people that I've like seen online talking about feminism, I chose you because the way that I feel that you talk about it, it's more direct and it's extremely clear, and you always make it seem that that it's like exactly not what other people think, and you dumb it down to so that they understand that it's not, oh, like we're equals, you know?
Mhm.
We're equals and we should be treated as equals. And
Yeah.
there is a lot of feminists that do believe that women are better. And for me, my personal view, I do believe that we're equals and we should be treated as equals. But for my question, it's how would you define it?
I say feminism is the movement that is for the empowerment of women and the promotion of femininity, and they're separate purposefully. There's two pieces to it, but this is what I see over time. This is what feminism has always kind of done. This is why I define it this way.
So what got you like started into wanting to learn more about feminism? Like what did you think about how it was when you first thought of the idea of feminism?
It's funny. So I actually used to call myself an anti-feminist until about 3 years ago. And the reason was because of probably the same things that you guys have heard of the pop feminism that feels like it's more about like gender opportunism, like just being like, how can I as a woman get more, right? Or misandry, like just a lot of girls with bad relationships becoming like feminists. And I'm like, I don't know if like that should be the purpose of feminism. And so what got me actually back interested in feminism is one of my friends. We're actually not friends. We actually don't like each other very much, but I listened to Critique from Anywhere, and she made a really good point. She said, my communist acquaintance, I suppose. And she was like, so I'm a Christian as well, but it always surprises people because I have a lot of problems with the church and I really hate evangelicalism, right? And so she's like, well, why do you still call yourself a Christian? I'm like, well, I believe in the foundational beliefs here. Like I believe in, a meatball man in the sky named Jesus who like loves me and loves everyone, right? And she's like, okay, so like regardless of the people, you believe in the ideology. Don't you believe that women are equal and that we should continue to empower femininity? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, then you're kind of a feminist, whether you like it or not. And I was like, that's kind of true. And so then that's what started me basically identifying as a feminist, and then thinking about it more. And then I started doing actually a series that I haven't finished. I only actually did 2 episodes, working through my own relationship with femininity itself and processing it. And I think processing my own relationship, because I've actually always had a really tough relationship with femininity. I'm very socio-masculine. I always wanted to be where the boys are. I grew up fundamentalist Christian too, so I wanted to be fighting with theology with the pastor. So I was a bad woman all the time. All of the female leadership that I've had in my life was very toxic. And so I had a very strained, tense relationship with femininity. And the main way I felt like I was connected to it was that I like makeup and fashion, right? But in a lot of ways, I was very distal to it. I had a hard time. Me and my friends call it girltism. Like if I'm like in a girl group, I get like really nervous and shy, and I like don't know how to code switch into like a more femme style of communication. And so through the process of exploring my own relationship, like with my mom and with like female leaders in the church and stuff, I think it's opened my eyes even more to like, especially things like femininity, and really coming to see how the things we assign, whether nature or nurture, I don't care. Like, I'm not going to get into that one, but the things that societally we'll assign to women, we view as like less respectable, and how like awful that is. Like if we assign nurturance to women, which I don't know, again, society does this, right? Whether we agree that women are biological or not, women generally fall into these nurturing roles. It feels like society looks at nurturing roles and they're like, that's really nice. And it's like, it's goddamn incredible. It's amazing. It's like, I'm sorry, like watching a girl be patient with like a smelly, weird guy who like is clearly creeping on her, and she's like really patiently trying to be like, no, is like a masterclass actually of like resilience and temperance that it feels like nobody has any respect for. And so I think the more I started exploring femininity, the more I was like, why doesn't anybody care about this? Femininity is so cool and nobody cares about it at all. They just think it's like cute. And it's not just cute. It is also cute, but also it's more than cute, you know? So I think I know that was a long-winded story, but that's, I think, how I've kind of emerged into feminism. It's a very personal connection to it.
Yeah, I could actually relate to a lot of the things that you said. Like, just, being here in high school, both of us, we were homeschooled. So it was like a big change. And I don't think when I was in homeschool, I really had to deal much with like gender inequality, because even though it's like homeschool, we also like went to school. Like, so we were around like boys and like other
Like it's like a
girls too.
campus kind of.
Yeah, that we still had a campus.
Yeah.
But I really I didn't see it much, especially because I was younger. But now that I've entered high school, now that I entered high school and I'm a junior now, it's like there's a lot. Like even amongst like the teenagers who call themselves feminists, the men that call themselves feminists. I'm like, how are you a feminist if you're constantly putting women down?
Yeah. And I definitely relate to that. Like being in a male dominated sport, like I have like growing up, I've always done combat sports, and it's not really common where you see women. Like I can definitely relate. Like I never grew up like super girly, and like I really liked all the like super feminine stuff. And so, well, being homeschooled, once I got into regular high school, like being around the other girls who would like
Hyper feminine.
hyper feminine, like
Yeah.
it was odd because growing up in that room, like around other men and that masculine energy, like I just carried that into myself, and it was sort of odd. But I would say like being part of a team and spending more time around girls and becoming comfortable with myself and in more female spaces, like especially how girls wrestling is one of the fastest growing sports, like more people coming into it, like I've definitely gotten more comfortable and felt more feminine in myself.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. I imagine high school, especially transitioning from probably a homeschool space, which I suspect that anyone who's in like a homeschool campus probably just has a lot of intention. It's probably pre-selecting for a very intentional, at least parents probably. Not saying that they're like better or worse, but then if you guys are in public school now, I'm assuming. Right. It's just like it's a whole other population, and like, you know, it's just, we're all thrown in together, which means you guys are around and amidst all of the social scripts, many, especially in a small town, that are 10 to 15 years older than what you might see in like Hollywood or in like high dense urban city spaces, which I imagine is tough. I mean, hell has no wrath, like the liberal feminist male towards a woman, right? Like there's always like that weird experience of being like, aren't you a feminist? Why are you, this is weird. What's happening right now? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same. I'm in girls tennis, and a lot of the girls there, my peers, they're more like, they're more on the feminine side. and growing up, like my mom isn't a very feminine woman. Like when I was little, she didn't know how to like braid my hair because she grew up with like her uncles and stuff, you know? So me growing up, I didn't really know how to do a lot of the stuff that like girls are like supposed to know, like society sees them. So I would just like throw my hair up, put on like a t-shirt and like go hang out, you know?
Yeah.
But it has made it hard for me to like actually find like friends that are girls. Like I'll go to places and I just feel like, okay, why am I being excluded? And it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah,
The
but
girltism. Yeah.
yeah,
girl
the
tism.
girl
Don't know how
Yeah.
to code switch. Yeah. And it takes a while. You have to like watch and observe. And I've found like a lot of like younger modern, I'm not sure what your culture, because girls are different everywhere, right? But there's a lot of spaces that like of women that are very patient with the girltism and whatnot. And then there's a lot of spaces that aren't. And that can be really tough if you like don't know how to code switch and stuff. It can be cause a lot of problems and you're always like, I swear I'm not like, all the misogynies that we throw at each other. I'm not a pick me. I'm not like these things. And it's just like, it's very interesting the way in which women themselves are some of the greatest arbiters of the shame and judgment that we put onto women in many of the same ways that men are the harshest towards other men when they fail the scripts that they think that they should occupy. And by scripts, I mean the way you ought to interact and engage in life. Women can be very harsh on each other. Older women who are maybe more patriarchal will look at you doing combat sports potentially and you not being super girly and being like, oh, that's very, very bad. But then maybe more like city modern girls will be like, why like having a hard time connecting with you because you speak like very directly and you don't speak in a more like traditionally like hyper femme way of like women just generally they'll talk around the issue and then they'll get to the issue and like they're very emotionally carrying in conversations whereas men are very direct like all the time. And so if you're really socialized around men, you're probably a very direct person. I was closest to my autistic father growing up, right? And so the way that I've communicated and learned to communicate is very, very direct. And that caused a lot of problems in like more femme spaces because I was super direct and they all thought I was just an
yeah.
and to some degree I was a very like traumatized, like broken person. But in some ways it's like I was just communicating differently because when I spoke with either other women that had a more direct style of communication or with men that were often more direct, I never had those same social issues. So it was just a learning of like how to code switch and like speak in a different style because both of them are fine. They're completely fine ways to communicate. They're just different and you have to occupy them both.
You're listening to Valley VibeZ. All Valley VibeZ episodes are available on the Spartan Sound Productions YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Amazon, and Apple. I don't want to get like into the race aspect, but especially living like on the border, we have like a very high Hispanic population, and so I feel like the culture also has a lot to play with the patriarchal, like the machista kind of way of life. How the father is the head of the household, and the women are come home and they take care of the husband and
Make their food and
yeah.
stuff, yeah.
Gotcha. Because it's a very, I'm Canadian French, so I'm the furthest thing from Latina. But my understanding is it's very Catholic and very patriarchal. And Latinas are very interesting because like their women are very loud and aggressive in a way that like when I grew up being like white Protestant, women are quiet in my space. Like you're not loud. But Latina women are very loud. And so I think a lot of times from like my perspective growing up is that I thought like, oh, they had all this freedom, Black women are also very loud and that's like accepted within their society. But then when you actually look at it, there's a ton of very, very patriarchal things that are going on in different areas and different like scripts that women are still expected to occupy. And I suspect that, grandma and mom can be very tough on you if you are not occupying those scripts sufficiently.
Definitely.
Yeah. Even like when it comes to like jokes that are made around like the younger women, like, oh, you know how to cook and you're ready for marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like my grandma, she's older. She had my mom when she was older, and so she's like 83. And so
Wow.
she grew up like with the very traditional Catholic Mexican family, and so like she sees me and she's like, "You're like, oh, you're ready to get married, you know?" Like,
When are you having a
and so
baby?
I'm like,
And you're like,
I haven't graduated high school yet. Wait.
no, grandma, no. That's so funny. How do you find that they like enforce upon you? Like, is there a shame that's attached to not being feminine in the way that they prescribe, or is that something you expect to grow into? That there's going to be more shame about not being married, and not having kids as you age?
I do find that, you know, even though I have been lucky enough to grow up in a house where, you know, being more masculine, like especially like in the combat sports and the wrestling and that aspect of it is okay. I do have like responsibilities and roles in the house that are more feminine, and like that is my job. And my brother, he's younger than me, but he is seen as more like in charge, I suppose, of other jobs and other responsibilities in the house. And so we are expected to speak to each other and respect each other in a certain way. And especially when other family members come over, then it's like even more.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. What are the roles in the household, like chores wise, that boys are supposed to do?
So my brother he's in charge of like sort of basic like yard work. Like he takes care of everything outside. Like if things are, he fixes things. I clean, like I wash the dishes. I make meals for my grandma. Like I take care of my grandma most of the time. When I'm not at school or at practice, or my mom's at work, I take care of my grandma. Or well, my brother, he's slightly younger than me, so I have to somewhat keep like an eye on him. But at the end of the day, like he's keeps an eye on the general household.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And then for me, it's probably a little bit different. My mom, she grew up with a very strict and like extremely like Catholic. You're a woman, you're supposed to do this. And she was always kind of rebellious in a way. She's like kind of hippie too, my mom. And so everybody would give her crap when I was born because she didn't want to pierce my ears, when that is extremely traditional, especially in like the Mexican, like Latina culture.
Like as soon as they're
Okay.
born. Like
Yeah,
the
I still
babies,
don't have them, so
Oh,
I
really?
do have my ears pierced.
yeah.
Wow.
And so everybody gave her crap, and they're like, well, how are they supposed to know your baby's a girl? And she was like, well, I'm going to give my baby her choice if she wants to pierce her ears when she grows up. And till this day, I have my grandma from my, well, sort of stepdad, but I've known him since I was like 2, so he's like my dad. His mom has always been asking me, when are you going to get your ears pierced? So I can,
Really? It's that big of
it's
of a
like every
piece.
time I see her. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
think
know that.
it's crazy how even like as young as like newborns, like with the boys they shave their head right away. They like the girls, like I know in when my cousin had her baby, she like they shaved her head because something about how it's supposed to help the hair grow or something, or like was it like cradle cap? They shaved their head and they all got mad at her for it because they're like, oh, they're gonna think she's a boy. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And so the boys they get their head
Interesting.
shaved right away, and the girls get their ears pierced like as soon as they're born.
Also, with my grandma, she has a big thing of letting your hair grow out and don't cut it. Like, it's traditional,
I
you
was
don't
gonna
cut it
ask.
until like after your 15th birthday or something like that.
Oh yeah, the quinceañera.
Yeah, like quinceañera. But I was such a rebellious kid. I was like, you know what? Just for that, I'm gonna get a pixie cut.
Yeah, screw you, Grandma.
And she,
It's
I
all
remember,
fun.
yeah, she cried. She cried when I got a pixie cut, and just, be, just to make her upset, I kept it like that for about like 3-4 years.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of aesthetic performance that I didn't realize is so essential. And this is the way that's really interesting when you start getting into the what we call like in academic spaces like the femininities, right? So there's like femininity broadly within like our national worldview, but then there's also femininities, right? Of like how different subcultures and groups engage with femininity. But there's this common underlining, which is that the expectation of both femininity and masculinity are very strictly placed onto the child. And I imagine there is varying levels of shaming behavior that occurs when a child fails to express that. And feminism in any subculture is essentially seeking to like stretch and push the boundaries of the scripts that like women can occupy, right? Like in white culture, the tomboy was like a revolution. I grew up being a tomboy, and it was like a really big deal. But I was probably one of the first generations where it was socially accepted to be a tomboy. And it like, you know, the women didn't love it, but it was okay enough, you know? It wasn't the end of the world. I didn't get too many comments about like my unwillingness. I didn't wear a dress until like grade 8. I just like refused to wear dresses. Whereas it sounds like for you guys, there's less huge, like piercing ears in my culture, like in Canadian kind of French white culture, no expectation. Like I pierced my ears when I was like 18, I think. Like I was really old, and there was no expectation of that. But there would be a really big expectation for the girls to be dressed in pink and to wear dresses and skirts to signify their femininity. So it's very interesting, even though the way that you guys have experienced at a intersection of race, culture, and femininity, how that manifests for you, which is really important to look at as like an individual, to go, how has femininity been expressed and put onto me in a unique way? And what does that do to my psyche? And also, most importantly, what parts of it do I like and agree with, and what parts can I do away with, right? Doing the Nietzsche, I don't know if you guys know the philosopher Nietzsche, but he writes a lot about inheriting memories and structures, and the work of looking at the structures and deconstructing them, with Nietzsche's goal of actually rebuilding and taking some of the pieces of the old and replacing some of the pieces of old with new. Yeah.
You're listening to Valley VibeZ. All Valley VibeZ episodes are available on the Spartan Sound Productions YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Amazon, and Apple. Well, I think social media has a lot to play into it also. Like getting older, I think, especially like being in high school, like seeing the other girls around you, like doing certain things, or like dressing, like doing their makeup, growing up not knowing how to do that, or like being introduced to it in a sort of way.
Yeah.
Like it definitely plays a takes a toll on the psyche, I think.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Especially with social media, right? You guys are growing up in like crazy. I mean, social media was already tough. I grew up in the wave of like where anorexia was like super, super all the rage. Like all the girls were trying anorexia. I grew up in an era actually where there was a website called My Friend Anna and Mia, and it was like girls giving each other tips on how to be anorexic and bulimic. Crazy to think about back in the day.
Yeah.
But you guys have AI bots and videos that are just like so edited that I can't imagine going online and growing up and trying to figure out, is my body okay? Does it look okay? And seeing literally like women moving around in a way that seems natural, but they've actually gone and like blown up their breasts and blown up their bum and tightened down their waist to inhuman proportions, right? I mean, we know now that that is really, really hard, particularly on girls who engage in like a lot of social comparison, particularly on our bodies and our looks. And I expect for a culture that's very aesthetically oriented, you guys have to have long hair, you have to have pierced ears. I imagine you guys need to look like girls. And there's a very strict what that looks like. And I can't imagine. I'd be curious for you guys to share, like, what is that experience of relating your body to what you see online? And if you don't want to get into it, that's totally okay.
I think for me, it affected me a lot because I was always like okay with having short hair. I got mistaken for a boy all the time, like constantly, mostly by older people. But there's a lot of them here. So, and then going into high school, that's freshman year, I started growing my hair out. I was like, I don't want to be mistaken for a boy anymore. I'm done. I'm gonna grow out my hair. Like I miss having my long hair. I miss dressing like a girl. I'm not sure if that's like me being influenced by seeing like so many like pretty girls around me. I'm like, okay, I want to feel like a pretty girl, you know? I'm tired of feeling like just like a little boy, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm not like, I don't know if that's me being influenced or me just growing as a female, you know?
I would say I definitely, like, I felt that a lot. Like, being very active and, working out a lot of the time, like, my body isn't going to look the same as the average teenage girl. Like I would watch stories and they're very slim, like very like skinny, right? And I would look at my arms and I have muscular arms. Like I have toned legs. And I would feel more masculine compared to watching the other girls around me.
Mhm.
So, and then also I would feel like, especially in wrestling, wearing the tight clothes, it's being young and growing up, like being 12 years old, my body is not going to look the same as an edited photo that I see on Instagram. So
Right.
it was really confusing, but um like I feel like just being also as part of a team, like seeing all the different kinds of bodies, I think that's just the beauty of the sport. There's anybody can do it. Like everybody looks different in their own way. Like is I can find
Mm.
that sort of comfort that I'm growing. My body is also changing, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah, I
feels
feel like there's so much power when you can kind of let go of that expectation and start like realizing like there's lots of different beautifuls, right? And like your beautiful might be, you might be somebody who's very curvy naturally and have very large breasts, very big booty. And let's be frank, there's just a lot of people who really want that, right? And another girl's beauty might be a much more athletic, slimmer type build. And recognizing that, like, actually, both of these things are beautiful. And especially if you get off of the internet, right? And you get away from like very like childish, like clavicular style beauty fixations. The reality is like most people end up dating who look normal and they like it. Like your partner is probably going to be attracted to you and probably going to like your body and the uniqueness that it looks like, and that's okay. And it's okay that other women look different and are beautiful in that difference. Yeah.
Yeah. I think being in public school, it's almost gotten to the point where I've had like body dysmorphia
Mm.
because like I'm friends with a lot of guys and they joke around and some of the ways that they joke around, like it's like, okay, I know you're joking, but it kind of hurts, you know? Like,
Hmm. Yeah.
like, okay, I'm eating, but you don't have to call me fat though. Like you don't have to call me fat, like, oh, like you fat ass. Oh, you're always eating. You're always eating. And it's like, look at you. You look, or they'll be like, hey, you look like you gained a little bit.
Crazy.
in the wrestling culture. Oh my it's because it's very common where like during season you have to constantly make weight, so
Hmm.
everybody's always hyper focused on eating
Their
and
weight
the
and their
diet and
food.
what to eat. So right now, I mean, nobody's necessarily competing like regularly, so everybody gets a little bit more comfortable and they eat more weight. And so with the girls, there are sometimes that you can notice like there's a little bit of like uncomfortableness, and then with I see it a lot with the boys that they actually come at each other and like, oh, you're getting fat, oh, they're gonna come for your weight class, da 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 da.
Yeah.
They get on each other about gaining weight.
That's a very interesting generational difference I've noticed because I'm 32, right? I'm like the youngest millennial. Is the amount of body dysmorphia amongst young men is like the fixation that young men have on body is crazy. Even speaking to your comments, you should definitely probably let the guys know that it impacts you in a certain way. Um, because I wouldn't be surprised if part of why they're commenting on this is because to some degree they're somewhat fixating on their own eating and diet in a way that, like, frankly, like in my generation of young men, they just like didn't think about it at all. Like men were mostly concerned with like how tall are they, and do they have muscles? Like that was basically it. Whereas now it feels like men are starting to engage. Like in many ways, men are experiencing what women have been experiencing for like 100 some years, right? Of like the fixation on the body, and we're seeing like anorexia and bigorexia, so really big abuse of like SARMs and like growth hormone and different muscle boosters, basically of young men. I think it's really important that we like have those boundaries with our like friends and with one another. Like I try to be really mindful of how I speak about my male friends' bodies, because of the impacts that it has, and my female friends. I'm just in general, I'm very cautious when I talk about people's bodies, which I think is a really good social skill to learn.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless they're asking, keep your mouth shut. Or if they have food in their teeth, always tell them if they have food in
Yeah.
their teeth. That's the only thing you are allowed to comment on. But yeah, it's definitely worth like putting up those boundaries as well. Like your peers in expressing their probably own anxiety, possibly even like, there's a lot of things that are probably going on there. It's probably worth communicating, being like, hey, like, I don't mind joking around and stuff, and I want to be chill, but like, can we like not make constant comments about like my intake and my body? Like, I just don't like it. It's not chill.
Yeah, because then I start questioning myself. I'm like, okay, am I actually
Yeah.
fat? And
Of
then
course.
going to like to look up online and then showing like the BMI. BMI is not real. I don't believe in BMI.
Yeah. Very fair.
Because
Yeah.
I used to do boxing and I work out my legs, and so I know I have muscle, you know?
Mhm.
And the way that the fat on my body is distributed, it's not like I'm like huge, yeah, I'm obese, you know? But if I look at the BMI, it says I'm overweight, you know?
Yeah.
It's a running joke in my family that whenever we go to the doctor, like ever since I was little, like being Latina, like they like to give you like little treats like the conchas and everything. So I was a little chunky when I was a baby. So well, growing up now as an athlete, like I have muscle on my body, like so, and I'm a little bit more curvier. That's just like the genetics of it. So it's a running joke that when we go to the doctor every time he's like, your numbers are good, but you're slightly overweight. You're just a little overweight every time, every time.
Interesting.
And
Crazy.
it's you. If you look at me, like I don't look overweight.
You're like, bro, I have a six pack. What are we talking about right now?
Yes, I'm like I could probably punch you right now. And
Yeah.
you'd be knocked out. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm good. But
No.
that's just a joke.
Yeah. Another thing that I feel that has actually come up more recently is me being in an alternative kind of scene. Like, you know, alternative is being rebellious. It's going against social norms and expressing how you feel and just being yourself without judgment or like you don't. It's political. It's even political.
Can be.
There's been a rise of a lot of people who are conservative and have certain ideals and that are anti-feminist, and they're like oh, like my dream is to become not that there's not like anything wrong with becoming a housewife, but to the point that you're putting other women down because of that and still consider themselves alternative. And I think that's a big problem that we've been having, especially here in our school.
Where like the counterculture is both like there has been an explosion of like the trad wife, like, do you guys know the Red Scare Girls? They had a podcast for a long time. They were like communist rad femmes. Might not be familiar. I keep aging myself with these references, but there was these two girls. They're very, very on the up with like early social media. They're called the Red Scare Girls. Dash is one of them, and they were hardcore rad femme communists, growing out their armpit hair, wearing no bra. Back when like wearing no bra under your shirt was a really big deal. It's not, nobody really cares anymore. But well, they've actually, because I think there's such a fixation on being counterculture, not on like having cultural value with that. Like if you're counterculture, the question is why, right? It's because you're probably rejecting something within the culture. It probably shouldn't just because you're trying to reject culture at all times. So a lot of these girls, because communism and feminism became a lot more mainstream, they're now like trad Catholic wives. Like I've just watched so many of these like communists become like theocrat, Nazi adjacent trad wives. And I'm just like, oh, and so you guys will experience this as you grow up too. Like the people on like one extreme or the other, as that extreme becomes more socially normal, they're going to flip to the other side because all they actually care about is being counterculture. And I think this is very much like, it just goes back to like this like Nietzschean principle that I really love and has really informed like my own character development, which is like, why do I believe what I believe? Is it even true, right? Don't, question your own thoughts too, of being like, if this seems self-evident to me, am I just dumb? Like, am I just a dumbass? Like, it's possible I'm just stupid, and everyone else came to a different conclusion because they're on to something that I'm not, right? But really look at the things in culture. There's this great quote from the writer of Starship Troopers that says, question tradition and distrust the obvious. And it's this great dialectic that you can take as an individual. And depending on what your personality type is, I've always been avant-garde. I've always been pushing at the edge. I've always loved science and philosophy. And I've always rejected what everybody told me that I had to do. And I always kind of like tried to subversively, not listen to teachers and not listen to authority figures. That's always been my type. I've always been very alty, despite being very like fundamentalist as well and repressed. And so I've had to really learn that because my nature is to question everything, that I should actually like give benefit of the doubt to tradition and really try to look at tradition and go, is there something meaningful here that maybe isn't immediately apparent to me? But I think if you're the type of person who very much just falls in line with tradition and isn't inclined to question it, you should question tradition as much as possible. And I think it's really important as you're growing up not to just find yourself in a tribe and kind of mold to the tribe, but ask yourself, like, what is it in my own nature and proclivity that falls me into this tribe? What's actually genuinely valuable here? And what are the things that are an aside that like I can do or not do, but they're purely preferential? And I think that's a really important thing to do because I think it will change if you're in like an alt space, for example, from just being part of the alt tribe, which means you also go wherever the alt tribe goes, to figuring out what your like essentially like your holy consecrated values are, so that you have like a foundation that you stand upon and don't move on, regardless of where like your tribe or culture wants to go. And I think when you see these people that flip back and forth, or like the trad wives that are now like popular in like the alt culture and stuff like that, I look at that and I go, oh, people are just into it because it's different. Like it's just novel. And it's like, I never want to be the person who's like, oh, I'm really into something and it's my value now because it's not what other people are doing. It's like, that's not a good reason to do something at all.
And what do you think are like some ways people can support like gender equality and being more like aware of it in like our everyday lives, especially being like in a public school?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's been some really good stuff that's come out of like the pop feminist movement. Like I've really in the last few years come to really appreciate like the girl's girl mentality. It can be a little toxic sometimes because it's kind of a litmus test. I don't like that where it's like, well, are you a girl's girl? And it's like, I don't know. Does that mean I have to agree with you 100% of the time? Because if that's the case, no. But like the idea of like really trying to support other women and like understand and like connect in the experience of womanhood is something that's really beautiful that I especially see more popular amongst like Gen Z and like younger generations. That was kind of new for my generation. And it's really beautiful to see, just being like cautious in it. I think what we talked about, analyze the way in which femininities express in your society, and then ask yourself why it isn't respected, because it probably isn't, right? And like having Mother's Day and giving your like mom a flower at church because she's a mom and celebrating moms is not actually respecting femininity. It's like nobilizing and romanticizing it, but that's not respect, right? In fact, I think even the way that we engage with mothers isn't respectful. It's romanticizing. We're very much in this culture where like mothers can do no wrong and you're like this beautiful self-sacrificial lamb if you're a mother, and oh my goodness, there's nothing better than their mother. And it's like, I don't know, lots of mothers suck. A lot of them suck, right? And a lot of mothers lose their identity in being a mother, right? There's this classic woman who's a whole person until like whenever she has that baby, and now she's just a mom. And it's like, that's not beautiful, actually. There's something incredible about the self-sacrifice that most women are willing to do for their children. And we should respect that, right? But we shouldn't nobilize or romanticize everything, because when you're putting something on a pedestal or putting something below your feet, regardless of what you're doing, you are removing the subjectivity of that individual and you are making them an object, either an object of desire and an object to be like idealized, or an object that's below your feet. And it seems like when we look at the way society engages with girls and femininity, it's one of two. And this is why I'll fight with feminists a lot. I think there's a lot of feminist movements that just want to idealize women. And they're like, they're like, well, women are just like better than men. And I was like, I don't know. I guess you've just like never had a shitty female boss, because women be toxic too, right? Like they just like, women are people, and there's a removal of subjectivity. And by subjectivity, I mean there's a removal of identity. We forget that like that woman is the person with a whole life that is complex and 3D, And when you idealize her, you're actually removing the 3D-ness, because the reality is any woman who you think is awesome also has flaws. And there is a pressure on women in a way that I don't see with men, that like the idealized woman, when people find out that she has a flaw, man, hell hath no fury like a woman fallen from grace and popularity. Watch the way that people are comfortable talking about Blake Lively, right? Now that we've found out that she kind of sucks and is a bitch in a lot of ways, right? Like, I'm not a fan of how she handled a lot of that fallout, right? And the way in which I have seen even like feminists talk about Blake Lively, I go, oh, you want to do misogyny. You just want like the proper sacrificial lamb. And if the difference between you like being misogynistic towards somebody is whether they're like good or bad, then you're not doing feminism, right? Because feminism is necessarily empowering femininity and women to be individuals, which is 3D and complex, which means she might be a tomboy and a great actress, but also like kind of a shitty spouse, but a really good mom. And she's all of these things. And all of these things have to be like held in concert. So I guess like that's the biggest thing for me. Sorry, it was a bit of a rant, but yeah, really, I really want to put this subject back into women. And it feels like third wave feminism fought the belittling of women by putting women on a pedestal and being like, look how great women are. And I'm like, I agree, women are awesome, but they also suck sometimes, you know? Women are just people. And I really want to interface them as people, as adults, as if they're an adult, right? As a child who is also a girl, you know, if that is who they are. And I feel like that's really where we have a lot of work to do, is putting subjectivity back into women in the good and the bad ways.
All right.
Yeah.
Then. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you for being here and sharing your perspective with us. We really appreciate it, especially like with all everything we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
really interesting to see some like, well, not only like somebody older, but another person's perspective.
especially like not from where we are, and you have a completely different culture. Being, you said French Canadian, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
good to see other people's perspective.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me.
As we wrap up today's conversation, it is clear that feminism isn't just one idea. It's a movement that continues to grow, challenge social norms, and create space for more voices to be heard. Whether it's about equal opportunity, breaking stereotypes, or simply respecting others' choices, feminism impacts all of us in different ways.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to Kyla Turner for lending us her time and sharing her perspective. And to our listeners, we hope this conversation made you think, question, and maybe even start conversations of your own.
This has been Valley VibeZ.
This program was produced and brought to you by Spartan Sound Productions. Special thanks to Kyla Turner of Not So Erudite. Thanks also to our hosts, Athena and Arebella, for bringing her to the show. Thanks also to Dr. Thomas Tacky, creator and executive producer of Spartan Sound Productions, the administration of Central Union High School, Mr. Javier Fimbres, and Pound 98 for hosting us. And to you, the listeners.